Hello, and welcome to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
And we are Dungeons & Dragons DMs who love to homebrew items, spells, creatures, and features for D&D. This is a show where every week we make new homebrew content based on prompts that we get from our community, our listeners, come up with whatever we can and present it to each other for us to give notes on or just fawn over more often than not. And this week we have come to the table with creations for instruments that only specific creatures can hear.
Love it. Such a good prompt.
A very interesting magic item prompt. Yeah, this was an interesting one. I have a feeling that just based on the names of things, there's a strong possibility that we have come to very different conclusions about how to interpret this prompt.
I think so.
Which I think is pretty cool.
I was wondering when we rolled for this if we were going to overlap, because sometimes it always tends to be like these, the more we progress in this series, we've kind of found our own creative voices for subclasses and oftentimes spells too.
Yeah.
But when it comes to monsters and items, there tends to be a significant amount of creative overlap.
Yes.
So I'm interested to see today, even with the names here, even with our titles, what our items are going to do.
I imagine there might be some crossover or some aspect of it that feels similar. Should be quite good, quite interesting, I think.
Agreed. Before we begin, I had a brief discussion with another D&D player the other day, and I disagreed with him on this specific subject. It is so insignificant, but I would love your take on this.
Okay.
A while back, Brendan Lee Mulligan did a bit on this, I think with Lou, and I sided with one of them. I won't tell you what my opinion is on this yet. In your opinion, do you need more than one set of dice, and why?
Ooh, that's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
Do you need... I think it is beneficial to have more than one set of dice. I think you don't need almost anything, right? You don't need strictly a lot of things that we collect for the purposes of playing D&D, right? We don't need dice towers. We don't even need the physical books, technically. In many ways, there are so many resources available to you. I am a give me lots of dice kind of guy, though.
Same.
I have specific dice that that do mean certain things to me and have specific, I think, personalities or have a specific tone to them. So there's one set of dice in particular that are often my DM dice specifically for very key moments, major villains, large bosses, etc. Mostly because this D20 rolls more 20s than I have ever seen. It's kind of shocking how many this rolls. But it should be noted, I have done a lot of checking and testing. It's only in the actual session, right? I have rolled this dice a lot of times. It rolls sort of a standard array across times when I'm just testing it out. But in session, they will land a 20 when you need them to land a 20. And that's just how it works.
Interesting.
I don't know what it is about it. And it's probably a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's probably a confirmation bias. But I tell you what, I won't get over it. I won't get over it. I've gotten a lot of dice from players. I've gotten a lot of dice from friends, and I like to rotate those through. I often find that dice that I buy myself don't roll particularly well. So that's kind of where I end up rolling to, is like I go towards the dice that I got from other people. Sometimes I go back to like the first set of dice that I bought for myself ever. They usually don't roll very well. So yeah, I have a lot of dice, and each one of them is pretty meaningful to me. I know where I got them from for the most part. I know the personality generally of most of my dice sets, and it does feel distinct. And I don't know how to explain it other than that. So I would be on the side of, more dice is good. More dice is good.
100% agree.
Great.
Another element for me is Archer is now really into dice. My son, too young to really start playing D&D, but he just loves rolling the dice and stacking them and sorting them by color. And that is really cool to see. It's him playing with something that I very much enjoy myself.
Indeed. It's lovely. It's great to see. And I really think dice are a major part of that experience, and collecting dice, at least for me and at least for a lot of the people that I play with, is a really big part of the experience of, engaging with the game. I know players who, part of how they engage with the game is they get a new dice set for each character, and they make playlists for a character, and they do all of this stuff, right? And it's to engage more fully and to show how excited they are about the game, and also to feel like this character is unique and is whole and is more fully realized in all of these different ways that they engage. So I support all of it. I think it's the same urge that happens with, getting art made for your character. It's all fulfilling that same urge of just wanting to fill your life with more of that experience, and provide more ways to engage with it. So I love that.
Agreed, 100%. So not a need, but...
Not a need.
I would say a need for my preferred style of play.
Sure.
To have the complete fulfillment for my characters and for my players' characters at my tables. It is a required component for that.
You can get the measure of a person by, once their needs are met, what do they spend their resources on and surround themselves with? And to me, dice fit into there, right? Dice fit into there. It's not a need, but it's just after the needs. It's right. Just there. It's yes. Once we have the needs met,
it
dice are good to have. Dice are great to have. Love it. Top tier.
100%. Let's talk about instruments.
Let's do it.
Last week we talked about synthetic-based druids. This week, again, we are talking about instruments that can only be heard by specific creatures. Dan, could we please talk about your silent instruments?
Absolutely. So the way that I read this particular prompt was not so much specific creature types or dictating by the instrument who can or cannot hear the instrument, but instead having a generalized idea of only certain people, mostly that you choose or that the user chooses, can hear these things. So... but I made a number of things that all are a little bit different from each other. So we'll go straight down from the top. With the first one, the easiest idea that came straight into my brain was the instrument of secrecy. It's a wondrous item. It's an uncommon instrument of some variety. Any variety, you can make this a lute, you can make this a flute, whatever it is. And it requires attunement. When you play a tune on this instrument, you can choose to either treat it as a mundane instrument or designate up to 10 creatures who can hear its music from up to a mile away, and all other creatures cannot hear it. So it's as simple as that. It can be used as a regular lute or something like that, but you can also say, okay, when at camp, I'm going to let everyone know that if they hear the music of this lute, it means we're in danger, or it means we have the bag, we're coming back, right?
Yeah.
It's a nice little signal. It's a little telepathic thing that's not all the way telepathic. You don't have to have super telepathy to do this. It's just, you can hear this music, and it means something.
I love this.
And it could be fun just for some RP stuff, you're just like,
Yeah.
I'm going to make somebody hear this who I know is, somewhere in town. And it's a little freaky.
One of the things you said when we rolled this prompt last time, you said you had some ideas brewing right away, and they were very basic, and that's okay. And this is the perfect example. I don't know if that was one of those initial ideas.
Yeah, this is one of them.
This is the perfect example of something that you can make in the moment, or not. Coming up with simple ideas over time is totally valid as well. But it becomes something really useful without a crazy amount of complexity. Great examples are like the bag of holding. Super simple concept.
Truly.
This is like added to that list of style of item. Really great. I like this a lot.
The second one here is a little bit more specific to specific creature types. This is the beast whistle. This magical instrument is silent to all creatures other than beasts and shape changers. Any creature who can hear the instrument must make a DC 11 wisdom saving throw or become charmed by you for 1 minute. On a success, a creature is immune to this feature for 24 hours, and while charmed in this way, a creature must use its turn to move as close to the source of the music as possible. You're just calling the dogs in. And nice. I really I added shape changes very specifically because I'm like, I want this to work on were creatures.
Werewolves. Yeah.
I want this to work on werewolves or werebears or whatever. Like, it should
really funny.
It should be a fun and interesting deterrent or potential deterrent for those creatures. For parties who especially don't have magic items or magic weapons or
right.
It's non-silvered items and things like that. So
the funniest way I could picture this, you have a party that's been adventuring together for a long time and like late into the campaign. You have several trusted NPCs that you've been working with this entire time, maybe years in real world time, and you come upon this whistle in a shop and you buy it, and you're like, haha, I'm going to call all these beasts over, and you blow it, and the NPC that you've been working with for years is like,
so good.
And that's how you find out the trusted shopkeeper is a werepig or something.
Yep.
Like,
that would be so funny. That would be so good.
It'd be so good.
So good. Yeah, excellent. Top tier. So fun.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that Frank just leaves every 30 days. Like, he just goes he camps out for a long time in the woods.
There he goes. Oh, man. That's funny. That is very funny. The next one that we have is a spell. This is called Silent Song. I made a spell. It's a 4th level divination spell for bards. Bards only. Bard exclusive spell. Casting time of 1 action. The range is self, and it has no verbal component, just somatic and a material component. All you need is 2 cotton balls, and it lasts for 1 hour. You open your mind to a spectrum of resonant frequencies beyond typical hearing. For the duration, you can ignore the verbal components of all of your bard spells, and any of your bard features that require a target to hear you lack that requirement.
Ooh. Nice.
This means you can play your music and people can hear it even if you are silenced, even if you are in an area of silence, even if you're gagged, bound, whatever. Like, you don't need to do the verbal components.
Yeah. Burn 1 4th level slot to make all of the other spells a little bit more potent.
I might bring it down to a lower level. I don't know if 4th is necessarily appropriate here.
It all depends on the situation. I feel like low magic games,
high.
It might be a bit high, but if you're shooting off spells regularly,
right,
I feel like 4th level is more than fair.
Yeah, I'll think about it, but I do think it would be fair at 3rd. It would be a fair thing to have at 3rd. And then we have a monster. I made a monster, and the monster doesn't feel quite done yet.
Okay.
I think it needs one more feature or something going on, because this is the Piper. This is a medium fey, chaotic neutral. I haven't quite landed on armor class or hit points, but my guess is it will probably be in the range of 14 or 15 armor class. And hit points, probably just below 100 would be my guess. I don't think it needs to be a hugely powerful Fae. Speed of 30 feet. and a strength of 10, dex of 18, con 14, intelligence 13, wisdom 16, and charisma 22. It is proficient in insight, perception, performance, and stealth. And it is immune to the charmed condition. It's got some dark vision and can speak Sylvan and Common, of course. But its main features are that it has innate spellcasting. Spellcasting ability is Charisma, so it's a spell save DC of 17. And the Piper can innately cast the following spells requiring no material components: Hideous Laughter, Minor Illusion, and then 3 per day each Command, Dissonant Whispers, and Silvery Barbs, and 1 per day each Conjure Animals and Enthrall.
Nice.
It also has a Phase Step feature and magic resistance, similar to a lot of other Fae.
Sure.
It can jump 30 feet, and it is resistant to magical effects. And then it has the action Charming Tune. The Piper targets one creature within 120 feet, and that creature must make a DC 17 Wisdom saving throw as it hears a beautiful, sourceless tune that no other creature can hear. On a failed save, the creature is charmed by the Piper for 1d6 days.
Ooh.
While charmed in this way, a creature automatically fails all saving throws against the Piper spells.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I also want to figure out how to add the idea that like you are compelled to follow the Piper, because this is the Pied Piper, right? This is the whole idea, is that this is the Fae, the Pied Piper. It can conjure some rats if you want. I should maybe put in Conjure Animals that it's just rats.
Right.
Otherwise, it's trying to lure and charm each member of your party to lure them away. It doesn't have a lot of damaging features either. It's pretty limited damage output for this particular creature. So its deal isn't really about getting you and killing you as much as it is about just like, you are charmed by me and I will imprison you or do whatever Faes do. So I think it just needs to be like a second action to like target all creatures charmed by it, and suddenly they're compelled to, follow the Piper and move their full speed.
It has like Killgrave vibes. If you follow Marvel Comics, like the Jessica Jones villain Killgrave, his whole thing is like he doesn't necessarily physically damage anybody, but he just takes over their mind and compels them to do stuff for him, like damage other people or damage property or cause general mischief in his name. Yeah. The moment you fail that save, yep, you're gone for a whole week. You're gone for a whole week. Yeah. Really cool. That's a really cool idea. Yeah. I think the physical movement part is the weird thing, because movement is such a specific mechanic in the game that you can't just be like, well, you follow him, but how? Like, what is his movement speed? Right. You have to work out the mechanics of movement. Yeah. It's probably just some actions, like he plays a tune and like all the creatures charmed by him are, immediately compelled to move their full speed towards him. Mm-hmm. I feel like I also want it to be like not overly sinister. Command is the most it can do, and charming you, right? Like you're the charming and you carrying out whatever orders, quote unquote, is mostly going to be an RP. And otherwise it's going to be command, which is limited to one word and is limited to a single sort of very simple action. And I think longer term charm effects are also not often found in the game. Agreed. And it makes it very hard to use some of the interesting spells that do get rid of charming. You often don't find that those get used very much, if at all. Charms usually don't last very long, or they can prompt a save at the end of your turn and you're eventually going to hit it, So there's not as much of a feeling of you need to get this person out of this charm, and the only way to do it is by casting a spell that will override this effect somehow. Dispel magic or lesser restoration or whatever it is. So yeah, that was my take and approach to this one. How about you, Michael? How did you approach this? I based my creation this week off of one of my favorite video games of all time. This game is part of a franchise that has released consistently great content for decades now, and it still stands out as one of the best games in the franchise. I think many people would argue it is one of the best games of all time, certainly within its parent company. If you would open the document, please, Dan. Today I present to you The Warden's Ocarina.
Very
based
nice.
on
Very nice.
Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This is an instrument. It's a songhorn. Very rare. It requires attunement by a ranger. I'm showing the ranger some love this week. It is a class-specific musical item. One thing I want to say before I get into the write-up here, I think this could be setting some groundwork for a musical instrument system, like a way to use and notate music and keep music stored for a player that wants to utilize instruments that isn't necessarily a bard, but they're still interested in having that kind of item on their person. This might be the forerunner to a new idea for me in the future.
Sounds great. I'm excited to see what that means.
So this is the Warden's Ocarina. Unless played in a very specific way, this small wooden wind instrument emits no sound to any other creature but yourself. To attune to it, you must practice with it for 24 collective hours, and once attuned, you are proficient. To maintain your attunement and proficiency, you must practice with this instrument at least 30 minutes each subsequent day. On this instrument, you can learn a variety of melodies that have unique effects associated with them. Each melody requires a certain amount of practice time to learn, and multiple melodies can't be practiced concurrently. You can memorize a number of melodies equal to your wisdom modifier. Any others you wish to know and play regularly must be written down and sight read. So my idea for a system as a whole is kind of a songbook, akin to a spellbook for a wizard, where you have some spells that you know innately, but a lot of them you are referring back to your notes in order to cast. So
This is interesting.
With this, you can memorize a couple, up to 5 typically, but anything past that, you have to carry your ledger book. You have to carry your songbook with you to make sure that you are playing the correct notes in order to invoke the magic correctly.
Nice.
So I included 4 songs. These are loosely based on songs that are found in either Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time or Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which is an underrated game. So much unnecessary hate for the art style when it came out. I think it looks great.
Yeah,
even after all these
people
years.
were really sour about the art style when it first came out.
Yeah. It was so good. And then they based like 8 other games off of that art style. So
yeah,
people loved it.
It's just a little it's a little more stylized than people were used to, sure, but it was stylized is okay.
Beautiful art.
Interesting. Not everything needs to look the same. Thank you.
Exactly. Not everything is the same. All of these songs have a prerequisite. These are number of hours of practice needed to successfully play that specific melody. All of the practice has to occur while you're attuned to the instrument. So the first one here is called Hum of the Wild. You need to practice this tune for 2 hours to be able to play it successfully. Every 10 minutes over the course of 1 hour, you can play this collection of long, droning notes, only to be heard by beasts. When the hour is complete, one beast of your choice will appear near you. It is friendly to you, can understand your speech, and will follow simple commands that would not lead it into direct and obvious danger. The challenge rating of the beast can't exceed half of your ranger level rounded down, and the beast scurries away once you complete another long rest or begin this melody again.
Nice.
So you just call a beast, and then they show up. The next one is ripped directly from Ocarina of Time. It's called the Sun's Song.
Great.
It takes 3 hours of practice. Only undead can hear this bright, chipper tune. As an action, you can play this melody, forcing any undead within 10 feet of you to make a wisdom save. On a failure, a creature is stunned until the end of their next turn.
Nice.
So just undead, and only until the end of their next turn. So it's a significantly shorter duration, but you could at least open them up for a few shots with advantage there.
Yeah, and gives maybe you and your companions a round to regroup and figure things out. That's cool.
The third one out of 4 is called the Waltz of the Saddle. This takes 5 hours of practice. You can take 10 minutes to play this soothing and airy melody that only can be heard by the Fae. Over the course of that time, you cast the Find Steed spell at 2nd level. When you cast in this way, your steed is automatically a Fae. Also, while playing this melody, you can spend a spell slot of 3rd level or higher to increase the casting level of Find Steed. So if you play it, you can cast Find Steed at 2nd level basically as a ritual at will. But if you want a steed that can fly, great. You can spend a 4th level spell slot and play this melody, and you can have a flying horse.
Very cool.
And the 4th one out of 4, this is called the Song of Passing. It requires 8 hours of practice. This complex melody requires difficult hand positioning and focused breath control to play. It can only be heard by creatures within 10 feet of you. Before beginning a long rest, you can spend 1 minute playing this contemplative and beautiful melody. For you and any creature within 10 feet of you, the long rest that follows passes as though it were 8 seconds instead of 8 hours, while still supplying all of the typical benefits. During this long rest, none of the affected creatures can take any damage and are undetectable by any means from creatures outside the 10-foot radius. Once you play this song to speed up a long rest, you can't do so again for 30 days.
Okay, yeah.
And as a note, this effect does not speed up the flow of time or change how time works for other creatures outside of the radius. It only changes the perception of time for the creatures near you. So it doesn't actually affect time. It just, for you and your friends, 8 hours becomes 8 seconds and you're safe. It gives you one free... danger-free long rest per month.
Great. That's pretty good.
And that's it.
I think this framework, like you say, is really cool. It feels like the kind of thing that could be expanded, more broadly. It reminds me a little bit of there's the tomes.
Yep.
That you can kind of collect that can increase certain of your stats and things like that.
Yeah, you have to pore over them for a certain number of hours.
For a certain amount of time, and it's if you make a certain amount of progress, but then you put it down for a certain amount of time, you have to start over again because you sort of lost your place a little bit.
It has to be within,
within the space of 10 days, you have to read it all. And this feels very similar where you're adding that stipulation of you still have to do this every day. You still have to dedicate 30 minutes of your downtime, of your long rest or whatever it is, to practice so that you can stay proficient at this and that you don't lose the progress and the ability to do this, which I think is really cool to maintain attunement and proficiency. If you skip that for a day, or if you lose the instrument, if you get imprisoned or whatever, would lose attunement, you would have to relearn the instrument a little bit. I think that's a really cool thing to set as a baseline, as a way to encourage someone to keep doing something as a regular practice. And then this list of things. I love any video game, whatever it is that has things like this that are collectibles, like pieces of music that are collectibles are great for me. I love that kind of thing. And this feels like it could function very similarly, where if you make enough of a long list of these that have near spell-like effects, some of them, they're obviously close, your Find Steed is almost a 1-to-1, but I like that some of these are near spell effects, but also are specific to certain creatures and things like that.
And they're more powerful based on the amount of practice it takes to learn them.
I put this to you, Michael.
Okay.
I think that you and I should come up with and write, and maybe we can do this for an episode within the next couple or so. I think that you and I should both come up with a handful of songs like these here.
Okay.
And I think they should be defined by how long is required to learn the song, right? Just like you have it here, the prerequisite of how much practice is required for it. And then also maybe a prerequisite of what type of instruments it can be played on. So whether that's like woodwinds or string instruments.
Oh, that just opens up, because you think about like, because both of us are musicians, so
Yeah.
I think about like, I am extremely proficient at sight reading vocal music, and that kind of loosely translates to like some guitar notation, guitar chording, and piano music. But like, if you put like oboe music in front of me, I may as well be looking at a totally different language, because it is essentially a different language.
Right, it's a different language, and then there's what's that cello song? What's the dooba 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 dooba?
I don't
what is
know.
that song?
I don't.
But there's
know.
also the
I know
aspect of that
exactly
where
what
like if you play that on a clarinet, it will sound technically correct, but it like doesn't have the same effect, right?
right.
That's not
Yeah,
a
something like each of these songs has like a preferred list of instruments where you can play it on another instrument,
but
to,
I don't
like,
think it has
half
the
of an
effect. I don't think it has the
it just
effect. I
has,
think
like-
it's like this is a piece for strings. This is a piece for stringed
Right.
instruments. So it's like lute, lyre, this is a piece for woodwind, so it's got to be like, the songhorn, it's got to be this and that, right?
We just made a whole series of things that's just analogous to spell schools, where it's just like, these are wind songs, these are brass songs.
But I don't think it has to be like that, right? I think that we can adjust it so that it doesn't feel like spells, right? And it feels like something that's like,
right,
because
it
each
should
one will
decidedly
have to be
a different thing.
It should feel different than spells. They can be spell-like abilities, but I think, and expanding it out, even if you say like specific to certain classes, could also be fun, but also I feel like is not as necessary
Right.
as just like any class, any person should be able to like find an instrument out in the wild and learn how to play it. Maybe we can make a tier list for like certain instruments take longer to learn or something like that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, how do you actually use that then? And I love this as an idea that's like, it's near spell effects. A lot of them take longer though. They're like ritual or 10-minute length sort of situations because a song takes a while to play. I think that's very cool. And I think that you and I should just take an episode of this show and both of us come with a predetermined number between the two of us, songs that you can take and you can find these pieces of music out in the world and learn them.
I am humbled by your positing, and I dutifully accept.
I think that would be just very cool.
I think that would be a fantastic use of an episode. Additional layer here, songbooks. Because if you get past your modifier, you can't remember all those songs.
Right.
What effects do different songbooks have? You have a nice sleek songbook that only holds a couple songs, but they take less time to learn because you can write them faster, or it's more easily legible,
or lots of room for notations so that you can
Lots
keep
of
your
room for
notes in there,
notations,
so sight reading
you
becomes
can-
easier for you.
Yeah, some nice shorthand so you can cut the durations by 50% or something.
Because I think sight reading should have a skill check associated, right? I feel like anything you have memorized is
sure.
just like automatic, right? I
Yeah.
know how to play the song, so I play it, and it doesn't require a check. But if you're sight reading, it should require a check.
Right. Oh, for sure. For sure.
It's like a performance check. Can you sight read effectively? And that's, the DC is something that's determined by like the level of complexity of the piece of music or something.
Right. Because I was also thinking I almost included like an actual item block for a songbook, and I didn't, because I thought that maybe that would just be like too far away from what the actual task was, so I just did the instrument. But I was thinking like very similarly to how a wizard copies a spell into their spell book. I don't know that it should require gold. Probably not, because this is a little bit less intense than like learning spells, like learning highbrow magic. But it definitely is along a similar lane. Like it runs kind of parallel to that, where if you're somewhere you're not supposed to be and you find a piece of music and you only have time to copy the notes down and you don't know what it sounds like, you're just like, I'm going to take this and save it for later. Like that is a skill set. Like copying music is a skill set. So that should be like, sleight of hand or some type of mix between intelligence and dexterity.
Something.
A check somewhere in that space to be like, I need to quickly copy this down, and the worse job I do, the more time it's going to take for me to learn this song later, because I didn't take the time to just like really bar all of my 16th notes correctly.
I think that's so cool. I'm thinking of so many ideas already of like what various songs could be, and like it also goes hand in hand with the ideas of like what does like brass instruments, what does that evoke in terms of feeling, right, and stuff, right? Like that feels like songs for brass instruments, right?
Yeah.
Songs for brass instruments should be about like buffing or defending, or like it should be almost,
victory
like,
and battle,
victory and
heroism,
warlike, and all of these things. Whereas, things for flute should be much more like gentle. Things focused maybe on nature. Things focused maybe on like you have here, nature, beasts, and fae, and this sort of thing is like all floaty, like the winds, and then things like drums can. I think drums are great. I think drums could be something that has like. A very different kind of effect that's more related to as long as you continue playing. As long as you continue playing this, it has an effect because there's this rhythmic quality to it, right? And so maybe you're using your turn every time to maintain this, but everyone gets plus 10 feet to movement speed as long as you keep playing. Everyone's faster, everyone's moving more efficiently. Could be
shield
interesting.
Gong. Call back to the shield gong.
Back to the shield gong. I think this is just a really cool framework. And again, I love anything that gives mechanics to a feature of the game that doesn't really have strong mechanical definition at this point.
Incredible. Coming 2025, the College of Creation Musical Instrument System resource for a table near you.
Yeah. We'll put it together. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Well, this was a great episode. I liked all of your stuff
Michael.
very much. I love the Piper. What a great and terrifying creature. At this point, I suppose we should roll for next week, though, right?
Yeah, let's. I believe I rolled last time, so it'll be your go this time around.
Okay, here we go. That is going to be a 7 today, Dan.
A 7. A 7 is going to be an interesting one because this prompt simply says, take one thing in the game that you dislike and fix it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I already know exactly what I'm going to do.
We are going to fix something in the game.
I know exactly what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to make for it, but I know I will make something for this thing.
Oh, gosh, what am I going to do? I'm sure we've talked about a lot of things that would be options for this on the show before.
Yeah.
We
making the grease spell flammable again.
Well, make the grease spells flammable again. Absolutely. That's just a given. But that requires no work at all. I've got to find something that's real that I don't like. I've already done some of this. Some of the features and feats that we've landed on have been specifically in a way of addressing some lack in the game, but I don't know.
I can't wait. I can't wait for this.
I'm very excited to see what you come up with because you seem absolutely tickled. So
I'm giddy. I have no idea what I'm gonna make.
You know what problem you're trying to solve. You just don't know how to solve it.
I hate the most. Yeah, I don't know the solution. I have no clue which direction I'm going to go in.
Excellent.
I just need to fix this one problem.
Great. I will. It'll take me a minute, but I will find that same problem, I'm sure.
Love it.
It's not coming to me as quickly as it did you, but gosh, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that I don't particularly care for.
Yeah.
A lot of them are specific subclasses or specific, like uber-specific features. But I will see what I can do. Are you going to fix the 2024 Ranger?
Maybe.
He's not going to tell me. He's not going to tell me, folks. Well, until I can find out, I suppose. Michael, do you have anything at all to say to the people before we say goodbye?
Dan, you know I always have something to say to the people before we say goodbye. Today's is very short. If there is a piece of a game that you play, a club that you are a part of, any type of hobby that you are involved within in any way, if there's a piece of that thing that you like and is not necessarily a need, sometimes it is a need for you, and that's okay to lean into. For me and Dan, that's dice. Sometimes it can be any type of token or talisman that someone not involved in that hobby might think is insignificant. It might not mean anything to them, but if it means something to you, it is valid, and you should go for it.
Get art made of your characters.
Oh, yeah.
Get special dice for your characters. Get special dice for every level if you want.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Couldn't agree more, Michael. Well, farewell, folks. We will talk to you very soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Hey everyone, Michael here. Thanks for listening to this episode of the College of Creation. If you want to see our creations from this episode and all of our past episodes, you can find those for free on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/College of Creation Pod. If you feel like supporting us further, you can become a patron and access a few bonus recordings, like top 10 lists, D&D related games, and conversations that were cut from full episodes for time. If you have any questions or a homebrew prompt you'd like to see Dan and I tackle on the show, you can send those to collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com. And our intro and outro music is by Fuserwolf. You can check out his content on Bandcamp and Spotify. Again, thank you all so much for listening.